Hello, my name's Noreen Burke, and I have a problem. I cannot drive by a pile of things on a curb without looking and going, oh, can I redo that? Can I upcycle it? If you're like me and you love turning these little curbside treasures into something new and amazing, then today's video is for you. Hello, welcome back. I am Noreen Burke and this is the Crafty Organizer, and on this channel I love bringing you ideas for organizing, decluttering, upcycling, DIYs, and basically anything crafty. But today I am bringing you 3 upcycles that I got to do over the weekend that I am super proud of. These were all things destined for the landfill, and I have brought them back to life, and I love them so much that I'm bringing them into my home. One of them I'm on the fence with, but let's see what you think about them. I'm not sure why, but in my neighborhood, I find things on the curb for the trash all of the time. They're usually marked free. This table absolutely caught my eye, even though the drawer was missing. And I'm also part of a Facebook good blup giveaway where you can get things free. So I picked up this little nightstand, even though it had some chew damage on it. And you may or may not remember this drafting table I got last year. I have not forgotten about this, nor have I abandoned it. I plan on completely redoing it and turning it into a dining room table. So if you like these projects, please make sure you hit the subscribe button. And at the end, if you've enjoyed this, make sure you give the video a like as well. That type of feedback really helps my channel, and it tells YouTube what you're enjoying, and it will change the way suggestions are coming to you. So the 3 things that I got were this little table, a tray, and the nightstand. As you can see, the table is pretty rough. It looks like it may have been outside for a little while because the wood is very warped. It has started separating in places. As I mentioned, this table just had some chew damage on it, and it was definitely intended to be a more distressed farmhouse style. It's a little more distressed and rustic than I like, but for the most part, it's in great condition. The drawers work. It just needs to be cleaned out a little bit. And I'm going to focus on de-distressing it, if that makes sense. I'm going to undistress it some, just to bring it more up to the look that I like. Now, I did notice that this piece was probably a Hobby Lobby item, and it's not assembled in a way that I can easily take it apart, so I'll have to work around how it's built. The table has a lot of wear on it, but again, it's a good structured piece, so I couldn't let it go into a landfill. I'm going to work on how the wood has separated a little bit, and some of these parts where the veneer has completely lifted off are going to need to be puttied or have some sort of alternate idea. But for the legs, it's just going to require a lot of sanding, filling where need be, but I think this piece can be absolutely salvaged, and the little tray is in perfect condition. The first thing I did was disassemble the table top and where the runners for the drawer were at. This did not come with a drawer, so I'm going to find an alternate solution for that. And it was just attached with simple screws. So once I removed that, I was able to separate the 2 pieces and then really look at the table top and decide how I wanted to proceed. After my supervisor Yzma checked in on my work, I was able to decide that the bottom is actually in better shape, so I'm going to use that as my top. There was a large section where the veneer had been lifting off, so I put some wood glue in there and then weighted it down, and then started working on an area where there were a lot of staples. I'm guessing when the table was purchased, there were instructions or hardware stapled to the bottom side, so I slowly worked at removing all of those staples out of there. While the wood glue was drying, I started working on the little table, and this is where I realized that the Narnia room did not exist, and there was no way to disassemble this without ruining it. So I'm just going to switch gears because I wanted to stain the top. I'm going to have to paint it because it's also not wood. It's a particle board, even though it's a higher quality, so I cannot stain this. So I'm sanding down the paint to try and offset where it's heavily distressed, hoping that when I paint it, it will actually all be a more solid coverage. I then started sanding the top. This is to eliminate the areas where the wood has separated and also try and get it down to a more even wood tone so that when I stain it, it will take the stain better. Next, I'm going to go in with some putty, and this is to fill in the areas where there are deep gouges, where the wood has separated, or where there were holes from staples or screws. Again, this was the bottom part, so the old legs attached here, so there were several screw holes all the way around. This will go in as a purple color but dry white, and it is also stainable and paintable, so I really love this putty. Next, I'm going in with the putty to try and recreate the corner. Now, I'm not going for perfection. Getting a very square corner would be difficult. And since this piece is pretty distressed, I don't want to go in for a clean line when the rest of it is so rough anyway, but I am going for a more squared area. And when I do the sanding, I'm going to round the other front corner so it matches. I'm also going to work on puttying up the more distressed areas in the paint so that once again I have a more even texture. So anywhere where they really gouged out the paint for a distressed look, I'm just going to even it out a little bit. Now I'm going to focus on this little tray. It looks like it had a lot of water damage to it, so the finish that was on there really buckled up. So this really just needs a good sanding, and I'm deciding whether I want to stain it or paint it. Leave me a comment below on what you think I should do with it. Now that all of the putty is dry, I'm going to go over with a more fine sandpaper and take off the top. This was the area where that gouge was, and it filled in very nicely. For the bigger areas, I'm going to use my orbital sander again, and if you don't have one of these, if you can ever find one that's on a garage sale or secondhand, grab it because boy does it make the job faster. Since the sides of this were heavily painted, it was a little bit harder to get the paint off. So I went more for a almost gone, but I want some of that paint to show through because I love the more distressed look that the farmhouse style has. Next, I'm going in with a damp rag. This is a really important step when you're done sanding if you want to have a good finish with the paint or stain. I'm going to do the same thing with the tray and then also that side table. Now it's time to tackle these legs. With this being such a high gloss, thick paint, I cannot take this down to a wood level without spending a ton of time on it. And I knew I wanted my legs to be white anyway, so I'm really just focusing on getting off any deep gouges and taking off that high level of sheen that's on top. For the legs, since the orbital sander will not work, I'm using my foam sander. This allows me to get into grooves and go more around curves and harder to reach areas. Do make sure on a project like this that you're wearing gloves. I had this fine layer of green all over me, so be smarter than me and wear gloves. Once I wiped that down, I did go in with an old can of spray paint that I had just to kind of give it a primed start. Going from a dark color to light usually takes a couple of coats. While my first layer of paint is drying, I'm going in with my Minwax wood finish. This is a stain, and it's Jacobine or Jacobine, however you like to call it. I love this darker color because it works well with browns and grays, so it's my favorite color stain. When you're staining, make sure as much as possible that you go in with the wood grain. I kept kind of forgetting and going in different directions to fill in holes, and sadly that does show up in the finished result. I'm also wiping off excess because I want to try and get the most even coverage that I can. Again, since I like the distressed, more vintage look, if I have any flaws, I don't really mind that. But if you're trying to get a more perfect finish, you want to be mindful of the direction you're going in and making sure you don't go over twice in one spot and only once in another, because you'll see it. This was a quick process. It took me less than 10 minutes to stain the top of this table, even with wiping it off. And here's the first pass of stain. Now there are a couple of spots that I see while editing that I had to go over again. Sadly, I didn't catch that because it is so bright doing it in the sun. Now I'm going to go over it with my clear coat on top. This is really important if it's a used area. I don't want any types of drinks penetrating through or oils from hands, so this is an important step. As you're sealing the top in, again, try and go one direction, and the more you go over it, the finer the finish will be so that you don't have any streaks. This is the final paint that I'm doing. I love Rust-Oleum. This one has a primer in it. This is a satin finish, and it's a pure white. I did decide to spray the tray because I want to use it on the new table, and I thought the white would contrast against the stain better. So I applied another coat to everything, and while it's drying, I'm bringing the tray inside, and I'm going to use some of that Dollar Tree contact paper that I love so much. This really is my favorite pattern. I will be devastated if they ever get rid of it. And I'm cutting out a piece to lay on the inside of the tray. The trick to contact paper is expose only a little bit. Then you can lay it inside and make sure that it's positioned perfectly. Once it's positioned, you can press down on the exposed area and remove the rest and go ahead and rub out the entire area of the contact paper to get a perfect positioned piece. I applied one more coat, so 3 total coats of the white spray paint, and now I can start adding the hardware back in. This side table is now done. Even though I desperately wanted the top to be wood, I might cover it with contact paper later or replace the wood later and just pry it off, but for right now, it's all going to be white. With the top completely done, sealed, and dried, I'm going to go ahead and add the legs back in. I'm going to measure carefully to make sure it's centered because I don't have the holes to guide me. Those were on the other side. Whenever I redo something, I love writing in when I got it, how I found it, just as a reminder to me where I get my furniture. The table is up in the air. I'm not sure if I'm going to keep it, although I do like how it turned out. It's still a little more rustic than I like. Here is the table in my living room. I really love it. And here it is all decorated with my buffalo check. I love the tray. It's the perfect place to add some decor, but also give me a place for my remote, my coasters, candles, or anything else I want to have on the table. I'm very happy with the contrast of these two. This redo of the table just helps tie in more of my furniture. This is a hall tree that I've had since the mid-90s. It's my favorite piece, and I've refinished it many times. This year with the bee theme, I'm able to bring in some past DIYs. I got to do the little antique fan made out of Dollar Tree items. I also did the wreath in a past video, but I also am here showing off the Temu pillow that I really love. These pillow covers I think are my favorite thing that I got out of that Temu haul. If you haven't watched that yet, I've got that down in the description below. And that 30% off is still available, I think, through the end of May. So if you're interested in trying out Temu and getting 30% off, make sure you use this code to get that 30% off. What do you think of these makeovers? I love redoing furniture or upcycling things. For some reason, I find it so satisfying to find something free and just refresh it or sometimes reimagine it completely. If you like doing these types of projects, where do you find your treasures? I know a lot of times if you wait until garage sales are over, people just get rid of the things at the end of the day. The Facebook Marketplace has so many free items. I could cry sometimes seeing the free hutches that I could remake into so many different craft cabinets. Tables, bookshelves are such a wealth of just wood to remake things. So be open if you've never tried this type of craft project before. If it was a free item and it doesn't turn out, you haven't lost anything, but you have so much to gain if you're able to turn it into something new and exciting in your space. So let me know what you've done. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons, as always, who help me make these videos. I'm going to be working very hard to get back into doing extra content for my patrons who are definitely deserving of some extra love and attention. But now that things have kind of leveled out, I have a lot more time, and I'm so excited about what the summer months are going to be bringing. So thanks for watching today, and I will see you guys very soon. Bye.